Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Tuesday talk. I have my friend Margaret joining me today. I will have Margaret introduce herself in just a moment. But before we get started, for our live listeners, we do love audience participation. So, depending on how your Zoom screen is set up, either top or bottom of your Zoom screen, most likely at the bottom, there is a Q&A button. If you don't see it, there is a button that says more. It's a circle with three dots. Click on that. It should expand it and you'll see that Q&A button. Click on that. A box pops up and you can type in a question. If you don't want me to know your name, you can even click a little box that says anonymous. Okay, so if at any time over the course of the next half hour, as Margaret and I are visiting, if you have a question for Margaret, don't be shy. Go ahead and type in that question. It's a really rare opportunity that you have here as a live listener. You have the opportunity to ask our president and CEO a question directly. So take advantage of that opportunity. Okay. So I've already spilled the beans as to who you are, Margaret, but if you would please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks. Margaret Haynes. So I've been sitting in this seat since April of 2022.
Hmm?
And it's been an amazing ride. Although I've been with the brand, I just celebrated 15 years with Right at Home as of January 3rd. So it's been a fast 15 years and such a fun ride to be a part of it. So
Yes.
glad to
And
be here.
happy anniversary. I would be
Thank
remiss to
you.
not wish you a happy anniversary. We're so lucky to have you. Okay, so just to put a timestamp on this Tuesday talk, today is Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. So this is our very first Tuesday talk of the new year. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of really awesome things that I want to discuss with you. We only have a short amount of time, 30 minutes, so I'm just gonna get right into it. So
Perfect.
um if you had to choose all the things, I know that there's a lot, but as we look ahead into 2026, as far as strategy, an annual plan, a longer strategic plan, what would you say is something that's a big focus for Right at Home in this new year?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to pick one thing, right? And 2026 is an exciting year because we're coming off completing our 3-year plan that started. We put it together in 2022 when I kind of stepped into the role and have been executing it across 23, 24, and 25. And I've got to say that plan exceeded expectations, right? We had goals and objectives that we put in place, and we just blew through as a network and as a brand all those goals and objectives that we set for ourselves, which is really exciting. And then this last summer, in the summer of 2025, we built out this new 3-year plan. And then we always break the plan down into smaller increments, knowing that, gosh, 3 years from now, when we look back, how we got to where we are is going to be a little bit of a zigzag roll versus exactly how we thought it was going to be when we laid out that 3-year plan. But when I think about going into 2026 and what are some of the big things that we're really focused on, certainly we are experiencing tremendous growth. So our franchise network, we are touching more lives and in a meaningful way. And what that means is we're taking care of more clients than we were the year before. So we've seen great growth there. We have more caregivers that are choosing to work for the Right at Home brand, which is fabulous because we know you've got to have those caregivers in
Yep.
order to provide the product. But we also have been moving the needle in other ways in which supports where the industry is going. So we've invested heavily in automation, whether that's through bringing on a new enhanced CRM solution, a real robust solution.
Mhm.
We've been working on that throughout 2025 with piloting with lots of our franchise owners. And now the floodgates are open and we're getting everybody moved on to that and building more automations. We've been investing in AI over the last couple of years and building that muscle and that's going to be something that will continue to be a key focus in 2026 and years to come. AI is here to stay. So how do we continue to lean into that to help automate and simplify some of those rote things that are done at an operational level, at an individual franchise level, as well as things that we do here at the corporate office to free up more time to do the things that are really important in our industry and for our brand, and those are the relationship building things that we do. So we've just got so much excitement. It's a fun time, I should say, to be in this industry. And obviously, I'm biased, but specifically with the Right at Home brand, just with the growth that we're seeing and so much opportunity for us. And I say this a lot, but we're just getting started
Uh-huh.
in terms of touching these lives in a really meaningful way. Because it's not just the clients, it's the caregivers that can get employed, it's the families that we give peace of mind to. It's the referral sources that we help them give peace of mind as they're trying to place their patients back home where people want to be and where they want to be able to age gracefully. So very
Awesome.
exciting.
Yes, awesome. And I just
So I
heard you.
didn't stick to one thing. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I knew you would break that rule.
Yeah,
Um, okay, because it's really hard to choose just one thing.
it
So what I
is.
heard
Yeah.
you describe was an equal balance of a lot of very foundational things that are vital to any franchise owner's business to help keep it, operating and sustaining that growth. But something that you mentioned, the relationship part of the business, that is in addition to all everything that you just described.
Right.
Plus, there's all these different relationships that were, um, coordinating, if you
Hmm.
will. So
Hmm.
with clients, caregivers, referral sources, like there's a ton of additional resources that we have for our franchise owners to help with that relationship part of the business.
Right.
Which leads me to my next question, and it's a
Okay.
frequently asked question that we get on the franchise development team. And knowing that the audience of people that are watching this webinar are people who are interested in potentially joining the Right at Home system.
Hmm.
Something that we talk about quite often here on the franchise development team is this is very people-centered business. You have to have a passion for people, and you have to have a passion for improving the quality of life for those we serve.
Hmm.
That is absolutely necessary to be a right at home franchise owner. So, in addition to that, if you can describe the perfect fit for a right at home franchise owner, knowing that they already have that foundational piece of they've got that passion for seniors, and they realize it's a very people centered business. That's necessary.
Right.
But what else does somebody who wants to join the right at home system? What else do they need to have in order to really thrive in this business?
Yeah, so I always try to step myself into their shoes, right? Of someone that's sitting there thinking, gosh, maybe they have a current, company that they're working for and they've built this great career. And do I leave that and take this leap of faith into now owning my own business? And what I love about Right at Home and franchising in general is you can own your own business without being business by yourself. But that also means that you've got to have that tenacity. So when I look at our most successful owners across the network, they are owners that they recognize the value of being aligned with Right at Home. So they stay engaged with the network from not just when they're engaging with the development director and making this big decision of whether or not to join the network, but then they stay engaged until the day that they decide years down the road, they built this great asset, they're going to do something else and maybe go now sit on a beach. They've stayed engaged the entire time because that's the beauty of what Right at Home brings to the table. And that's what we get up and think about all day long is how can we, from the moment someone engages with us and wants to learn about the brand till the time that they're ready to go off and retire, how can we help them build a strong, sustainable, profitable business? And so that's surrounding them with the best practices and coaching. So I would say have the heart and then have the mindset of I'm going to leverage everything that's available to me and being part of this fantastic network and using the coaching and being open to the feedback that we'll give them along the way because everything we're doing is in support of helping them be as successful as possible in their local market. And yes, the piece comes in and the heart comes in because you got to be able to build relationships because people want to do business with people that they like. So that's really important. And we'll even help you with that piece. But it really is that staying engaged and having that mindset of a true business owner, an entrepreneur that says, you know what, there's going to be obstacles along the way. But when an obstacle hits, I'm going to find a way to go over, under, around, or through it. And I
Mhm.
know that I've got an entire team and a brand that's been there for 30 years now. Will be 31 in 2026.
Yep.
And 26 years in franchising that has all this knowledge that they can share. And equally, we love learning from our new owners that come in because everybody brings great talents to the table.
Yes. Okay, great. And that's a great setup for my next question. Another frequently asked question we get on the team here. As you know, the home care industry is constantly changing in multiple ways. So this specific question is regarding, just the nature of this business and home care in general. So franchise owners want to know that their franchise owner is up to date on all of the different rules and regulations and what's going on with the government and how is this affecting the home care industry. So my question is twofold. How do we here at Right at Home Corporate, how do we stay on top of all of those topics and all of the current status on, the state of this business? And then how do we educate our system on all of those things?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so how do we stay current? Well, there's lots of different ways, right? So, as a corporate team, we have subject matter experts across all the different elements of what it means to run a home care company. And specifically, for example, around what's happening at a federal level and what do we need to keep our eye on, both of any legislation that's happening that might impact healthcare, because we sit in that realm, but also we sit in business realm, right? So if there's rules and regulations that are just impacting business owners in general, we want to stay on top of that. So we have a team and we have an individual that we call DC Doug that is our representative that stays really dialed in and sits on a subcommittee of our association that we also have, that we have all of our franchisees be a member of that association and we help subsidize that expense.
Hmm.
But then we also have someone from our executive team that sits on that board. So I just recently came off as past president this last year, and now our chief marketing officer is starting a 3-year tenure on that same board
Yep.
so that we can continue to have a voice there. But even if we didn't have a board seat, and just a little bit of history, so the association, while it's called has a different name today than it did back when it first started, our founder, Alan Hager, was the starter with a couple other individuals that initially started the industry association. So it's really very well steeped from a long time period,
Hmm.
right at home being very, very active from a national level, but also at the state and local level. And we work with our franchisees to also be really active in their state and local levels. So we have lots of ways in which we keep our eye on what is happening in the industry, both as just small business owners as well as what's happening from a healthcare perspective. And then in terms of educating, tons of ways in which we share that information, share best practices. A key one is we have Takeoff Tuesday. So there's one going on right now as you and I are speaking, that we have every week that we'll send in advance what's the agenda, what's the topics, what's the audience. In many cases, it's geared toward franchise owners. It could be geared towards a certain role within their teams. But that's where we share a lot of best practices. And it's not just the corporate office, giving a lot of information, kind of spooning out details and best practices, but it actually is peers. So it's other franchisees that are also speaking through a webinar to talk about the success that they're having in a local market or the things that they're learning that can be replicated across the network. So that's just one of a million examples of ways in which we continue to educate and make sure that we're all staying current on what's happening in our industry.
Sure. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And then I'm going to make my way through some other questions I've asked you in the past, but I think relevant to ask you, on a semi-regular basis, just for our newer listeners that may have not seen our past webinars, along with the theme of frequently asked questions that we receive. A question that I get quite regularly, and I know the rest of the team does as well, especially with people who are exploring franchising with a home care company. So they're interested in Right at Home, and they're also looking at other home care franchise concepts as well. So, and a question they ask us is, what makes Right at Home different How are we different than the others? And why would we franchise with Right at Home versus someone else? So just looking for your take on that question.
Yeah, it's always a great question. And if I was sitting in that same seat, I would be asking the same question.
Mhm.
Why? Why right at home?
Yep.
And, I always try to start that answer with saying what we do in terms of services provided isn't the distinction because uh, going in and doing a bath visit is a bath visit. But it's the relationship and it's how that is done. It's the experience that's created that really differentiates us. And it's also how we interact with our franchisees. I think, we hear time and time again, it's a different experience from when someone engages with our brand than maybe some of the other brands. And that's no knock because we have really good other brands out there and have the utmost respect out there. But it's a culture, it's a way in which we try to break everything that we do and help our franchisees break down what they do with their staff, their caregivers, their clients into what I would call micro experiences and to say, how can we make that the best experience ever? Because when you're in a service-based kind of business, that's where you differentiate is in how you make that customer, how you make that family feel as they engage with you versus the actual task that they might be asking to be done.
Mhm.
It's what's wrapped around that and how it's approached and the communication and how you handle challenges, when things come up. All of that is stuff that we help create what I call a very unique culture that permeates throughout the Right at Home brand.
Yes, and I actually, Margaret, I can confirm that is actually happening. I spoke to a franchise owner just yesterday,
Yeah.
and he's like, this may sound really boastful, but he said he recently received feedback from a client who was getting home care services from someone else, ended up transitioning to Right at Home. And just was singing this Right at Home owner's praises on it was just such a different experience. And it was a different experience on the family. It was a different experience to the client themselves, on just how we operated and how the business was run and the care that they received. And it just was best in class, as well as caregivers who were employed by this franchise owner
Yeah.
who had worked for other home care companies. And again, no knock on those other
Right.
companies, but just the feedback from this caregiver was the experience that I have had being an employee of yours has been second to none to other franchise owners that I've worked for other companies. So it just
Yeah.
absolutely warmed my heart to hear that, and I know it warms your heart as
Yeah.
well. That what we believe to be is true. Like it's the experience, and it's what we do and how we do it that makes us just a little bit different. Again, nothing wrong with the way that
Right.
other companies, how they're running their business, but I just loved hearing it firsthand, from a franchise owner, from a client, from a client's family, and from a caregiver. It really did warm my heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so, a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
I'm looking back to when Right at Home first started.
Oh,
So, we've
gosh.
been franchising for 26 years. We've
Mhm.
been, in operation for 31 years at this point. It's a lot easier to say 25 and 30.
It
I got to
was. I had to,
shift
yeah.
to 16 anyway, new
Yeah.
shift, new
Yeah.
numbers. Okay, so the original mission, when Alan started the business years ago, do you believe that mission has changed in any way? So thinking about the original mission for Right at Home, and here we are several years later, has that changed and how has it changed?
Yeah, so our mission has always been from when Alan started the company to improve the quality of life for those we serve. And those words still ring true today as they did 31 years ago. What I think has changed is just how many lives we've been able to touch with that mission
Mhm.
and the growth that has happened. So when you
Yeah.
think about, from the humble beginnings of Alan being a hospital administrator, looking at people leaving a hospital and not having the support that they need at home and hoping that they can, recover at home and not come end up back in the hospital because that's the last place people want to be and that's the unhealthiest place to be, right? Just with everything that
Yep.
is
Yep.
at a hospital. And so him just having a calling to say, I'm going to go get my CNA license. I'm going to start being a caregiver, see if I can make a difference. And then what an idea blossomed into what we have today and a brand that has celebrated 31 years. I mean, lots of companies don't even make it that long. And like I said, and we're just getting started. But so I think the core foundation is the same. And our mission still rings true today. We're extremely passionate about it, but it's the breadth in the in which how much we've been able to expand. And we always think about, yes, I love to see lots of different metrics move in the right direction, and they're all moving in the right direction, but at the end of the day, what gets me most excited is when I see our hours growth, because that means we are touching more lives. And we talk a lot about how can we continue to touch more lives. Having been a consumer of right at home's services with both my mom and dad before they passed, different times that we used them, I could speak for hours
Yep.
about what an impact being a part of this industry and being an owner in the Right at Home network and the way in which you will improve the quality of life for those that you serve in ways you probably can't even imagine at the moment as you're thinking about,
Yeah.
gosh, do I get into this industry?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. And a
Yeah.
couple questions have come in while you were answering that last question.
Okay.
This first question, it says, how is Right at Home staying innovative?
Hmm.
So, and I'd like to kind of add to that. So, how are
Okay.
we staying that way? But why is it important to our business model to um, innovate within our business model? I always say, like, it's just, you can't just keep doing things the exact same way and expect different results. So just looking for your answer on why is it so important for innovation in our business model.
Yeah, I think for any business, you have to constantly, you have to move and change and modify and grow as the industry grows and the changing needs of the consumer is.
Mhm.
And we recognize we are now in the process of transitioning to a different consumer that we're going to be taking care of with the baby boomers now starting to hit the age in which we typically are starting to engage with them because they're needing assistance in their home versus the traditionalists before them, right? So even our consumers changing. So we've got to change and continue to stay dialed into what that consumer needs. And then the industry itself. We know that the hospitals are under a lot of pressure. Our healthcare system is under a lot of pressure just because of this aging boom that's coming and not an equal tax base behind. And how is that all going to work? Which is why the industry involvement that we talked about earlier is really important. So, how do we stay innovative? So, we have a group that just focuses on innovation, thinking around innovation around the business model and innovation around technology. And that's where some things have grown over the last several years around things like AI and how can we use that new technology responsibly and effectively, recognizing that we also have access to sensitive information. So we have to be really careful to make sure we're not just,
Yeah.
the wild, wild west as as these new things come in. So we do a lot of testing of different ideas and we do that so that when we find something that really works, and we have some franchise owners that they love to be part of the testing group, and others are like, I just want to keep executing my business.
Yep.
Let me know when you've got a proven kind of tweak that you want to do and you can show me the ROI. And we're good with both of those because then we partner with the innovators and are able to continue to make sure that we're meeting the demands and the needs of what's happening across the industry. So we have to stay innovative and we carve off resources that aren't caught in the day-to-day stuff from here at the corporate office so they can also just constantly be thinking about innovation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And this next question I love. They're all great questions, but I especially like this one. It
Okay.
says, what can I do to prepare for success ahead of joining the Right at Home system?
Ah, so great question. So your development director is going to help you a lot with that. And we actually have a whole process of as you decide if you're going to join the Right at Home system, we have pre-work and things that we'll have you start learning before you actually come here to Omaha and spend a week with us and learn more about what's the right at home way of doing home care and what does it all mean. And it'll sometimes feel like you're, drinking from a fire hose, but we're really good at taking that to a garden hose with a little spigot and making sure you're getting what you need just in time. But I think prior to making your decision, as you engage with the development team, we also encourage you to talk to our franchise owners
Oh
and
yeah.
make those calls, those validation calls, and see. Because my hope is that you're going to get somebody on a great day and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. You're going to get someone on a good day that it's like, yeah, it's good. I'm busy. And you might get someone on a bad day, and that's okay too, because we
Yeah.
want anybody coming in to have a realistic view of what a day in the life is
Yeah.
and what it's going to be like to be a business owner. But I can tell you that it's certainly a great choice because it's
Yes.
a great industry. Yeah.
Yes. And I want to stress that something that you said, the franchisee validation part of
Yeah.
the process. We hear quite often that, of all the steps that people go through with our development directors and the development team as they're moving towards a discovery day, part of that includes reaching out to existing franchise owners and talking to them about, their day to day and
Yeah.
what it's really like. That step in the process is the most valuable step in this
Yes.
whole process because I mean you learn so much from your development director. You learn a lot by reading about us online, watching all the videos, attending these webinars. There's a ton of information to learn, but then once you have learned all that information, you actually talk to right at home franchise owners to talk to them about what is it like for
Right.
you? And
Yeah.
you're right. And, any information is good information. And we want people to hear sometimes this can be a very
Yeah.
challenging business.
Yeah.
And it's hard work. But almost everybody that they talk to, when they say, would you do this all over again? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Despite the challenges and the ups and downs, it's a great business to be in. You said it earlier. I'm biased as well. Obviously, I work for Right at Home, but quite often people are like, you know what? I would do this all over again the
All over
exact
again.
same way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just have a couple minutes left.
Okay.
So we've covered a lot of topics here, and I could talk to you for 30 more minutes, even another hour or two.
Yeah.
Lots of things that we could cover. But before we part ways here, is there anything that we didn't talk about over the course of the last 30 minutes that you want to say to our audience that's thinking about joining the Right at Home system?
Yeah, I do think that we've covered a lot of topics pretty quickly. But I think, as a parting thought is just kind of back to that mission and what you kind of talked about of what does it take to be really successful here. And I would say, use all the resources that you have available. We know it's a big decision to decide, am I going to go into business and, be the boss and wear all the hats and build this thing, or maybe take over an existing business if it's a resale, those sorts of things. But I guess as you're going through that thought process, it can seem daunting, but remember, you've got an entire group, an entire corporate office here, 100 plus people that are here and franchisees that have been in the system now for 25 years that are here to help, have walked in the shoes. So if you're ready to take the leap, we can assure you that you've got a lot of resources around you there to lift you up. And again, what I love, I think I said it earlier, is that you can own your own business without being business by yourself. And to me, that is the best way to start a new chapter. And I can't think of a better industry because we've got so much opportunity in front of us.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret. And
Yeah.
before we hang up here, I just want to say this. This really does speak volumes about your leadership here at Right at Home, that you take the time to do these webinars. It
My
is so
pleasure.
appreciated, and people really love these Tuesday talks. So incredibly valuable to get time with you and to give people the opportunity to ask you questions. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you, and I know that our listeners do as well.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. Have a great rest of your day. Until next
Thanks, you
time.
too. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.